Strength Warehouse presents Go Heavy or Go Home podcast. I am your host, Nate Boley. In this podcast, we talk about strength, fitness, nutrition, and all things Strength Warehouse related. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast, Season 2. Today, we have a little bit different of a format for the podcast. I'm going to be going deep dive into my past and how strength training really changed the trajectory of my life, ultimately to end up owning a fitness facility. It's just crazy. This is a crazy story. But all right, we'll start back in my early years. So let's see, 1995 ish. I was pretty active. I was always outside. My parents were outdoor activists, hiking people, and I played soccer. I also played other sports like basketball. I was very, very much a very physical kid. Loved riding my bike. Loved jumping off jumps with my bike, and so very physical. But my parents did not instill very good nutritional habits for us, or anything like that. So I didn't eat much. They didn't force me to eat anything. They didn't make me eat anything. I just drank a lot of soda and didn't drink a lot of water. So I wasn't nutritionally very healthy per se, but I was also very active. So that helped, And then when I got into middle school, so let's see, that would have been 1996 or so, maybe 1997. I can't math right now anyway, but soccer and basketball, well, soccer wasn't a thing in middle school. They had it in elementary school. They did not have it in middle school or in high school when I was in those grades. So I went and tried out in middle school. I tried out football because I thought that would be the next thing. I was a tiny kid. I was only like 118 pounds, and I played for freshman year. Was not very good, so I sat on the bench most of the time, but did all the practices and whatnot. But only played a couple games as like a fill-in, second string. The next year was 7th grade, and some of the kids exploded in size and weight, and I was not one of those kids. So I was very much one of the smallest kids on the team, and it was not working out for me. I was getting hurt, and the coach kind of had a heart to heart with me and said, "Hey, I don't think this is your sport. I think you should find something else to try to pursue." Just really wasn't into basketball, but I did try it. Did not like it. So I turned to I just went to doing skateboarding, right? So I started skateboarding and kind of hanging out with that type of crowd. Not saying that all skateboarders are bad, but in that day and age, the skateboarders were like the delinquent kids, right? So we were, had started messing around with smoking cigarettes and smoking weed and drinking alcohol at a very young age, only 7th grade. That segued into me getting expelled on my 7th grade year for having a bunch of weed on me. And that didn't do anything for my personality or my reputation in school or anything like that. So I just kept on going for it, and all the way through 9th grade, I hated school. Ended up quitting high school in 9th grade and not going. I was skipping, doing everything I could to not go. I was still skateboarding, but very much was not a physical kid anymore. I was more interested in skateboarding and getting high and smoking weed and smoking cigarettes and stuff like that. So finally my friend decided he was going to help me get back to school, so we went to the Sisters Alternative High School, and they gave us cigarette breaks during the day. I mean, this is how like the terrible kids were, they're just like, okay, it's time for your smoke break. So we go outside and smoke cigarettes and sometimes even weed and drink or whatever, and just was not physical at all. Basically stopped skateboarding, doing anything physical all the way through my high school years. I still worked, physically. I did, I was a stalker at Ray's Food Place for a while, so I was having to lift crates and stuff like that. So I worked physically, but it just was not a physical kid or I had no thoughts of physical health or nutrition or anything like that. And that takes me back to 2004 when I was 18, and I was working for my aunt and uncle at the Depot Deli. And one of my job descriptions was I had to, when the produce order came in, had to put it all away. And they had a pallet of 50-pound bags of potatoes at the bottom of the stairs, and there was a 2-flight stair thing that kind of like did a half flight and then turned 90 degrees and did another half flight upstairs to where the bakery was, and that's where I had to put all the potato sacks, and I think there was like 10 of them. And I struggled really, really hard to get even one bag up the stairs, let alone all of them. And I ended up having to get help for getting the rest of them. And man, it was just a super moment of defeat, right? My life was going the wrong direction. Even one of my best friends just said, hey man, he's like, you've had every opportunity to fail, and you were for a while, and you changed your life, right? So 18 years old, I weighed 128 pounds. I was smoking weed pretty much from the second I got up to the second I went to bed. Smoking cigarettes all day long. I was smoking about a pack of cigarettes a day at the time. And I remember after I was done getting all those bags up there, I went outside to sit down and have a cigarette for a break. And I'm just looking at the cigarette pack that I hadn't opened yet. And I was just so sick of it, and I wanted a life change so bad. I never opened the pack of cigarettes. I just threw it in the trash can, and I went back inside, and I started working. And I was talking to one of the coworkers there, one of my friends. His name was Matt, and he had been chatting with me about, getting into the gym and doing stuff like that. And he wasn't really a coach per se, but he coached me for sure. He had a home gym at his mom and dad's house outside of Sisters, in between Sisters and Bend. And he had just had a squat rack and a bench press and some dumbbells. I think that was pretty much it. But he's like, hey, I'm going to go work out tonight if you want to join me. And he'd asked me this multiple times. I think this was a Friday afternoon. This time, I had just threw my pack of cigarettes away. I was ready to turn a new leaf. I was extremely frustrated because I was weak and I couldn't lift up the bags of potatoes. And so I took him up on it. I said, sure, what time? He's like, well, we got out of here at 6 or whatever time it was. Actually, I think we were working morning shift, so I think we were out of there pretty early, maybe 3. He's like, you go home, take a shower. So you're all a cook. I was a cook, so I was all greasy and smelled like food and stuff. Met him out there, and I remember doing bench press with him, and man, I could barely squeak out a 90-pound bench press for one. I mean, it was terrible compared to what my bench press is now. Now, if that's where you're starting 95 or 90, it's obviously you got to start somewhere. But I always thought of myself as like a more physical person, even though I really wasn't. And so, yeah, that put some perspective on kind of where I was. And I started going out with him to his gym 4 to 5 days a week and lifting with him. And we did that for about a year and a half. So we started doing that, and about a year and a half, I started getting into it more. So I was going and buying some like whey protein. I had cleaned up my diet, really started prioritizing more proteins in there, eating chicken breast and rice, making better food choices when I was at the deli, because we always got one free meal. Always consisted of, like, back in the day, like a burger and fries and probably a milkshake or something. So I started cleaning it up, but I started eating more because I was actually trying to build muscle. And so it's, eating more protein, more good carbs, more potatoes, stuff like that. And I started seeing gains. By the time I was done lifting with him in a year and a half, I went from 95 pounds to 180 in my bench press. My body weight went from about 128 pounds or so to about 140. And you could definitely see some visual. My shoulders were bigger, my back was getting bigger. We did some deadlifts, squats, and bench, just like I'm doing today, and some accessories. And then he came to work one day and he said, hey, my parents are moving and so the home gym's going away, and I'm also moving, so you're gonna have to go find yourself a gym membership. And man, that terrified me. I did not feel comfortable yet going into a gym, but I did it. I went into Sisters, because I lived outside of Sisters at this time, maybe about 4 miles outside of Sisters. Drove into Sisters, and I walked into the Sisters Athletic Club. No, Cascade Fitness, that's what it's called. Sorry, Cascade Fitness in Sisters. And it's still there today. My buddy Ryan owns it now. And I'm glad it's still there, because it's definitely like nostalgic for me. But walked in, got a gym membership, and I just started doing my thing. And just put my headphones in and started working out. And then probably about 3 months later, there's a group of older guys. Still talk to them today, which is awesome. I saw one of them just last year, and he was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that's you." He's like, "You literally gained like 100 pounds." I was like, "Yeah, I did." But I started working out with a guy named Shemaiah. Rest his soul, he's not with us anymore. But we started working out, and we started hitting it hard. We were going 5-6 days a week, hitting hard. And he was a strong dude. I mean, he was benching over 315 at that time. At only like 18, 19 years old, or probably like 20. Squatting over 400 pounds for sure. Deadlifting over 5. He was a big dude. So I started lifting with them, and then these other older guys were lifting at the same time in the weight room. So we all started working out together, and dude, that was my routine for probably about 4.5 years. I did that. Yeah, I think it was about 5. Yeah, about 5. So 25, had my first daughter, Taylor, and I was really, really sick of commuting back and forth from Bend, because I worked in Bend at this time. I started my new career as an automotive tech, so I was very much completely opposite, 6 years later from where I was when I was 18, where I was not really working that physical, smoking cigarettes, smoking weed, drinking alcohol, not working out, to doing none of those things. No drinking, no cigarettes, no weed, physically working all day long on cars, and then going to the gym and hitting it really hard. I started really working on my nutrition, I got personal training certification, just was completely immersed myself into the scene in the world. Started going to all the supplement, stores, and trying out all the new supplements, meeting all the people, going to bodybuilding shows. We went to a couple strongman shows, a couple powerlifting meets back then. So 25, moved to Bend, and I didn't really know what powerlifting was when I had moved to Bend. I knew squat, bench, deadlift was a thing, but I didn't know it was like a sport. And I went to Bend, and I started looking at all the gyms, and I settled on one called Fusion Fitness. It seemed like the coolest gym in Bend at the time. And they're also offering a free month at the time, which was really cool, because I had just spent a bunch of money on moving, and I had started a new career, which was making less money than my previous one. And so I needed a little bit of help financially. So I started this gym, and probably 2-3 months into it, I came at a different time. It was like an hour later than I usually do. And I saw a group of these guys come in. They're younger. I think they're actually all younger than me by a couple years. But I saw them all come in with these big bags of gear and belts and shoes, and they slammed them on the ground. Looked like their room just exploded. Where their bags gear comes flying out of regular typical powerlifter, right? And I'm over and across the gym, and I'm watching them and checking them out and stuff. And they're squatting, and so they're starting to squat, and then I see one of them put on this suit, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? And so they put the suit on, and one of the guys working up to like an 800-pound squat. And mind you, he's a big dude. He was like 300 pounds at the time, or maybe even a little bit more, maybe 320. Big dude. His name was Dustin. Great. He could have been a great power lifter if he stuck with it long enough. Anyway, they walked over, and they're like, hey, we really need another spotter. Are you able to help us real quick? And by this time I had put on quite a bit of muscle. I was about 175-ish, 180, so 50 pounds I put on myself in like 4 years. Pretty solid muscle too. I wasn't like fat or anything. And I was like, heck yeah, I'll come over there and help you guys out. So I walked over there, and I helped side spot Dustin in his 800-pound squat, And I was just so intrigued by it. I was like, what in the heck is this? And they're like, oh, this is powerlifting. And I was like, this is awesome. Can I join you guys? And they're like, yeah. I was like, when do you come? And they're like, this time, Monday through Friday. And I was like, I am now switching my gym time. And so I worked with these guys for about 2 years and completely down the rabbit hole in powerlifting. Like, I got squat suits, bench shirts, belts, wraps, everything, squat, bench, deadlift all day long, every day. Put on another 10 pounds really quickly in about a year of pretty solid muscle. Went from, deadlifting, I think I was deadlifting about 365 when I met these guys, to pulling a 585 deadlift in about a year and a half. Man, I think it was about 2 years actually. My squat went from like 300 to, so raw squat was about 400, went from about 270 to about 405 raw, and with a suit on I could hit over 500. Bench went from like 225 to 360 in a shirt, and then we went and started competing. In our first competition, everybody bombed out because we weren't training correctly for competition. We weren't squatting low enough. And but it was a good time. We went to another one down in California, Mark Bell's meet, and that was fun too. Even though the main guy who was lifting, Josh, he bombed out as well because he wasn't getting low enough. And then he got low enough, but he couldn't get back up because the weight was too heavy for him. But it was a great time. We had a great crew. And then it kind of started to fall apart. People were doing other things in life, and injuries were happening, and just this and that. So the group kind of fell apart, and I kept powerlifting. The other people kept powerlifting for a little while and then quit. I don't know what they're doing now, unfortunately, but I went down the rabbit hole again, and so I went to a different gym because there was some drama going on between some of the guys, and I wanted nothing to do with it. So I took off, went to another gym, and then I wasn't super into that gym. That one was called 1440. Wasn't super into that gym. You couldn't deadlift because all the weights were upstairs and stuff like that. I'm like, this is not cool. This is not advantageous for powerlifters. And so I went over to, I went back to the other gym, which was Fusion Fitness. And those guys had gone by then, and I could work out by myself without having to see them. And then one day after my training session, a beautiful blonde lady comes walking in the door, and her hair was flowing in the wind. And that lady is named Megan Marie Boley. She's now my wife. Met her at the gym and gave her my phone number on a little pink sticky note. And we started hanging out together, and we started training together. She was like, hey, I'm really curious on what you're doing. And I was like, hey, I'm doing powerlifting. I'm doing Wendler 531 at this time. And she's like, I'd like to try that with you. So I was like, all right, that's cool. So we started working out together, and then we moved over to Excel, another 24-hour gym here in Bend, just big box gym, whatever, machines, cardio. And they were a little bit more of the powerlifting scene, a little bit more. They had one guy there that had a deadlift bar that I could borrow. They had a couple other guys, which I met 3 more guys. And we started all powerlifting there in this back little corner of Excel. One of the guys had his own bench that he had made in there. And we did that for Phil, Sean, and Robert, and Kyle, actually, for a little while. We were benching in there twice a week for about a year, and then I squatted and deadlifted on my own because the other guys were doing it. I'm not sure when they were, but we benched together for about 2 years. And then they wanted to buy more stuff, and I also wanted to open my garage that I had for a gym. So anyway, Sean and Phil and I all went together, and we bought some weights, and we bought a monolith, and I bought a competition bench, which is still in our gym today, and I bought a deadlift bar, and we powerlifted out of our garage for another year and a half probably. And then those guys kind of faded out as well, and Megan and I were still doing it, and we really wanted to bring the powerlifting scene, we wanted to build it up here in Bend, so we decided to go full bore, and now we own a gym. So strength training has completely changed the trajectory of my life, where I was not taking care of myself, just smoking weed all day long, getting high, getting drunk, smoking cigarettes, not doing anything good for myself, to completely reforming my entire life with strength training. And it's had such a positive effect on my life and everything else. I can contribute strength training to my success in the automotive world, and obviously my powerlifting career, and obviously the gym career as well. So that is the story of how strength training really impacted my life. And I love that story, and I want to share that passion with you. And that's why I'm on this podcast today. Now, if you aren't in a position where you want to be, or maybe you just haven't figured out the right way to get there, I'd love to chat with you and see how we can transform your life as well. But all right, guys, that is all I have for you today. I'm going to leave you with the saying that I leave with you every time this year, and that is: success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts, and everything you want in life is on the other side of your fear. So go out there today and take some action. Thanks for joining us on this epic journey of strength. If you liked this episode, please leave us a review and share with a friend. To stay connected, hit that subscribe button. All right, until next time, go heavy or go home.